The first sign that something was wrong came in the form of a ripple across the sky, as if the very fabric of space had been torn apart. It was barely visible at first, just a faint disturbance like a flicker in the corner of one's eye. But then it grew, the ripple became a shift, and the shift turned into an immense crack in the heavens itself, an ominous presence that hung above Earth's atmosphere, like a dark omen unseen, yet felt across the world. For the first time in history, every human being looked up and understood that something beyond their control was about to unfold. The ships appeared moments later, but they were not like anything the people of Earth had ever imagined. They were not the gleaming, perfect vessels of fantasy that humanity had dreamt up for centuries. No, these ships were massive, jagged things, ancient in design, their hulls lined with patterns that glowed with an eerie light, a cold, calculating technology that seemed designed for one purpose, and one purpose alone: domination. Within hours, their fleet was visible to every corner of Earth, from the smallest villages to the busiest metropolises. The world watched as the Empire's warships stretched across the sky, blocking out the sun and casting long shadows over the cities. Below, those who dared to look up through telescopes or cameras saw them closer and closer, the sight too horrifying for some to comprehend as the ships drifted silently in the void surrounding their home planet. A voice echoed through the global networks moments later, a voice that was not human, its tone smooth like polished stone, yet cold as death itself. It spoke, not in the form of a conversation, but as an unyielding command, a demand for humanity's immediate surrender. The message was brief and simple, a warning and a promise. Earth's leaders had little choice but to listen. The Empire had conquered worlds beyond count, and now it demanded Earth's submission or face annihilation. At first there was disbelief. How could this be happening? How could a civilization like theirs, a young one barely touching the stars, challenge such an overwhelming force? Yet as the words sank in and the magnitude of the threat became undeniable, fear turned to something else. It wasn't just fear, but anger, a stirring deep within humanity's collective heart, the feeling that no matter the odds they would not go quietly into the night. The leaders of Earth convened an emergency meeting. The gathering of nations, representatives from every corner of the globe, gathered in secret to discuss the Empire's demand, each one bringing their own sense of dread, but also a shared sense of resolve. They knew the cost of defiance, but they also knew the price of surrender would be far worse. Humanity could not simply bow to these invaders. They had to fight or perish. Trying, the decision was made quickly, but the path ahead was uncertain. The world's military leaders exchanged glances, some of them silent, others speaking with a sharp edge, their minds working overtime to find a way out of the nightmare unfolding above them. They knew their weapons were no match for the Empire's might. The warships they had were primitive by comparison. But then a different kind of voice spoke, one that was filled not with fear, but with a spark of something else, a realization that perhaps Earth's greatest weapon was not in the size of its fleet, but in the ingenuity and sheer unpredictability of its people. A plan was forming, a plan that would not just challenge the Empire but strike at the heart of their arrogance. Humanity would not fall in line. They would rise against the Empire, not with the same tools, but with something more powerful, a spirit that no conqueror could ever understand. The world's leaders sat around a massive round table in an undisclosed location, their faces lit by the soft glow of holographic projections, each display showing a different angle of the Empire's looming fleet, each image filled with the silent threat of destruction. Yet amid the tension, one thing was clear: Earth's future would be decided by the decisions made in this room, and those decisions could not be taken lightly. As the leaders argued about what course of action to take, a single phrase echoed through their minds: surrender or die. The Empire's message had been straightforward, but it had caused no small amount of panic across the globe. The mere suggestion that Earth could be wiped out by an invader more powerful than anything the human race had ever encountered filled many with terror. Some called for immediate capitulation, believing it was the only way to save their people. Others cried for resistance, no matter the cost, knowing that surrender would mean the end of everything Earth stood for. The representatives of the world's largest superpowers leaned forward in their seats, eyes locked on the screens, each one calculating how best to respond to an enemy that they could not possibly defeat through conventional means. Military advisors proposed desperate strategies, but all felt hopeless against such an overwhelming foe. Humanity's greatest military assets were outdated, their technology far behind that of the Empire, their resources stretched thin with the looming threat of defeat hanging over their heads. There were some who suggested that Earth's only hope was to appeal to the Empire's sense of mercy, perhaps offer some form of tribute or negotiation. But a voice cut through the room like a blade. It was General Lyra Kane, a veteran of Earth's armed forces, known for her cold logic and unyielding resolve, who spoke next. She stood tall, her voice calm yet filled with an intensity that captivated every listener. "We will not surrender," she said, her words a stark contrast to the fear that had filled the room moments before. "We will fight, and we will win." The room fell silent as her gaze swept across the faces of the leaders, every one of them sensing the weight behind her words. General Kane knew that Earth's military might was nowhere near a match for the Empire's might, but she also knew that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their firepower. It was in their adaptability, in their willingness to think beyond the obvious. She had watched humanity overcome impossible odds before, and she knew that if the human race could find a way to tap into their ingenuity and their unity, then perhaps, just perhaps, they could make a stand that would force the Empire to reconsider their assumptions. It was then that Dr. Elena Mercer, a renowned scientist and engineer, spoke up from the far end of the room, her voice filled with the excitement of a new idea. "We have something they don't have," she said, looking around at the gathered leaders. "We have adaptability, we have the ability to learn, we have the ability to change the rules of war itself." She paused, her fingers tapping the table in rhythm with her thoughts. "We may not have their advanced ships, but we do have something they haven't anticipated. A way to turn their own technology against them." The room seemed to stir with new life at her words. It was a spark in the darkness, something they could hold on to. General Kane nodded slowly. "Then let's stop talking and start planning," she said with a steely resolve. "If we're going to survive this, we'll need every nation, every mind, every resource working together. We won't be able to match them ship for ship or gun for gun, but we will make them realize one thing: Earth will never surrender." The leaders looked at each other, their eyes reflecting a new sense of purpose. No longer was there fear in the room. Instead, there was a shared understanding that if humanity was to have any hope of survival, it would come from the most unlikely of places: their determination to survive and their refusal to be underestimated. As the leaders of Earth began to shift their focus from fear to action, the world's greatest minds were called into a frenzy of activity. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists from every corner of the globe were brought together in underground bunkers and hidden laboratories, tasked with a single goal: to craft a solution to the impossible. What they faced wasn't just an enemy with superior firepower, but one whose tactics and technology were far beyond their understanding. But humanity's greatest weapon, they quickly realized, wasn't just its knowledge. It was its adaptability. The ability to take something old and make it new, to take something foreign and make it their own. Dr. Elena Mercer led the charge, rallying engineers and physicists to uncover the secrets hidden within the alien technology they had been collecting for years. The remnants of crashed ships from unknown races, strange devices found in the deepest corners of the planet. All of it had been dismissed as curiosities, mysteries to be studied, but not understood. Now, these pieces became the foundation for Earth's survival. "We've always been innovators," Dr. Mercer said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the task before them. "The key to beating the Empire lies in turning their strengths into weaknesses." The first breakthrough came when they discovered the alien power cores used by the Empire's ships, remarkably efficient, incredibly powerful, but not invincible. The cores, while unmatched in raw energy output, had one glaring flaw. They relied on specific resonance frequencies to maintain their stability. A resonance shift could cause them to destabilize, rendering the entire ship vulnerable. The catch was that understanding the exact frequency required knowledge of a technology no human had ever seen before. But Dr. Mercer believed they could reverse engineer it, using a combination of human ingenuity and alien knowledge. "We don't need to understand everything," she explained. "We just need to find the cracks, the vulnerabilities that exist in their systems." The team worked relentlessly day and night, poring over the alien blueprints, using their own advanced equipment to test and simulate theories. It was a race against time. Every passing hour brought the Empire's fleet closer, its looming presence in the sky casting an ever-growing shadow over Earth. Meanwhile, in the war rooms of the world's military, another team worked on developing the ships that would carry humanity's fight into space. While they lacked the Empire's advanced technology, their strength lay in a different kind of weapon: human adaptability. Instead of replicating the Empire's designs, they began to create a new class of warship, one that combined speed, agility, and cunning. They utilized the debris from ancient space missions, salvaging old Earth spacecraft and retrofitting them with whatever advanced technology they could harness. These ships would not engage in direct confrontations with the Empire's fleet. Instead, they would fight like the humans who designed them: unpredictable, fast, and relentless. "They think we're primitive," General Kane said as she observed the progress on the new warships. "Let's make them regret that." Meanwhile, across the globe, nations began to set aside their differences for the common cause. The wealth of information being shared between countries was unprecedented, as knowledge from every corner of the world poured into the project. Nations with years of conflict behind them found themselves collaborating in a way no one had ever imagined. The war effort had become the one thing that could unite humanity's fractured world, an unstoppable force that began to push back the fear and uncertainty that had paralyzed them. As the world's engineers began to piece together the first of the new warships, something extraordinary happened. The collaborative energy between the engineers, military planners, and scientists created a shift in the atmosphere. It was no longer a question of if humanity could survive the Empire. It became a question of how the humans would take the fight to the stars. The Empire had underestimated them, and now humanity had a single burning purpose: to make the invaders regret ever thinking they could conquer Earth. The final piece of the puzzle came when Dr. Mercer's team succeeded in reverse engineering one of the Empire's power cores. They had found the resonance frequency, and with it, a weapon unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. It wasn't just a power surge, it was a destabilizing wave, a strike at the very heart of the Empire's invincible ships. Earth had found its first real weapon of war against the invaders, and with it, a new hope for survival. The humans were ready. The warships, powered by their own innovations, were now a force to be reckoned with. And as they launched into the stars, the Empire's arrogance began to show cracks, and Earth's long-dormant fighting spirit began to awaken, stronger than ever. The moment Earth's first warships ascended into space, it was as if the entire planet held its breath. The sleek, modified vessels, each a product of countless hours of ingenuity, now soared toward the unknown. They were outnumbered, under-equipped by comparison to the Empire's monstrous fleet, but they weren't merely ships. They were symbols of humanity's defiance. They were more than weapons. They were a testament to what happened when humans refused to back down. General Kane watched from a command center beneath the Earth's surface as the ships left the atmosphere, her heart pounding with a fierce sense of purpose. The first strike came without warning, a violent flash of light against the backdrop of the cold void. The humans were no longer just observers of their own fate. They were participants in it. A barrage of laser fire sliced through the emptiness, connecting with the closest of the Empire's ships. It wasn't a direct hit, not yet, but the Empire's fleet flinched, and that was enough. The humans had made their presence known. Above Earth, the Empire's fleet, a vast armada of unimaginable scale, initially seemed unperturbed by the attack. They had seen countless civilizations fall before them, after all. Their fleet's towering warships and advanced technology made them invincible, or so they thought. Their commanders watched Earth's pathetic defense with a detached amusement. These humans, so young and fragile, thought they could fight back against such an overwhelming force. It would be over in hours, they assumed. But then, The Empire's arrogance began to shift. Earth's ships weren't just fighting. They were doing the impossible. Instead of a direct assault, they began to weave in and out of asteroid fields, using the natural terrain of space to their advantage. The Empire's ships, massive and lumbering, couldn't track them effectively. The humans used every tactic at their disposal: hit-and-run attacks, quick maneuvers, and feints that baffled their enemies. Each encounter was unpredictable, a chaotic mess of fire and speed that left the Empire's commanders reeling. These weren't soldiers who stood in the face of fire with calm stoicism. They were fighters who thrived in the chaos, each one adapting faster than their enemies could react. The first decisive moment came when a fleet of human warships managed to flank a much larger Empire cruiser. The alien ship, despite its superior weaponry, was caught off guard. It fired blindly into space, missing its targets by miles. Meanwhile, human ships darted in close, releasing their newly engineered destabilizing waves. A shockwave rippled through the Empire's ship, and for a brief moment, their invincible armor flickered. The cruiser's engine sputtered, and it veered off course, its once dominant form drifting like a wounded animal. The humans were ecstatic. Their tactic had worked. They didn't need to match the Empire ship for ship. They only needed to outthink them. The sight of the first alien cruiser faltering sent a jolt of energy through Earth's forces, a shared understanding that the fight was far from over. And it was not hopeless. The Empire's leadership, watching the unfolding battle from the safety of their flagship, couldn't believe what they were seeing. How could this be happening? How could these primitive humans, with their backward technology, have found a way to destabilize their mighty warships? It was almost laughable at first. But with every passing minute, it became less and less amusing. The Empire was not used to setbacks. They were not used to being outwitted. The Empire's fleet responded with brute force, bringing their firepower to bear in a massive counterattack. But Earth's ships, already spreading out in unpredictable patterns, responded with even more unpredictability. They had the speed, the agility, and now the confidence. Humanity's warships hit fast and hard, never staying in one place for too long, forcing the Empire to use resources and tactics that their commanders had never imagined. Back on Earth, the war was being watched by billions. Every nation, every individual, felt the pulse of the conflict. It wasn't just a battle in space. It was the heart of humanity on display, its resilience, creativity, and unwillingness to yield. As reports of Earth's successes spread, a sense of unity washed over the planet. This wasn't just about survival. It was about showing the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. And as the Empire's fleet scrambled to maintain control, Earth's forces continued to press forward. They had already won the first battle in space, and now they would see how much farther their audacity could take them. It wasn't just the beginning of a fight. It was the start of an unstoppable war. The Empire had made a fatal mistake in underestimating Earth, and now humanity would make them regret it. The battle for Sol raged across the vast expanse of space, a chaotic dance of light and shadows that stretched for weeks. The Empire's fleet, once so confident in their superiority, now found themselves constantly reacting to the unpredictable tactics of humanity's warships. Each skirmish saw the Empire's once unassailable vessels suffering damage. The human ships, fast and nimble, continued to outmaneuver their heavier opponents, darting through asteroid fields, using solar flares to obscure their movements, and attacking in ways that defied the Empire's most advanced combat algorithms. For the first time in the Empire's long history, their invincible fleet seemed uncertain. It wasn't that their ships were falling apart. Not yet. At least, it was the psychological damage that began to set in. The Empire's commanders had expected a quick victory, a brief, overwhelming show of power that would bring humanity to its knees. But instead, they were facing a constant stream of small, relentless attacks that seemed to come from all directions at once. The Empire had underestimated Earth's resourcefulness, and now that mistake was playing out in real time. turning the once pristine battlefield into a deadly game of cat and mouse. General Kane, now in command of the human forces, could see it all unfolding in real time. She had spent decades in military service, but nothing had ever prepared her for this moment. The tactical advantage was shifting in their favor. Each victory, no matter how small, gave their forces more confidence. Earth's warships, once humble and outmatched, were now becoming a nightmare for the Empire. She watched as one of the Empire's smaller cruisers, a massive ship in its own right, faltered, its engines disrupted by one of the destabilizing waves humanity had perfected. The ship sputtered, its massive form turning sluggish as the energy fields protecting it flickered. The human fleet closed in for the kill, a precise and calculated strike that ended with the Empire cruiser's destruction. The sight of the cruiser breaking apart in space was a clear message. Humanity was no longer a planet of easy prey. They were a force that could be reckoned with. As Earth's warships pressed on, each victory seemed to fuel their momentum, the strength of the human spirit becoming more apparent with every battle. On the Empire's flagship, a high-ranking commander watched with growing frustration as their forces continued to retreat under the pressure. "How is this possible?" the commander muttered, his voice tight with disbelief. "How are they winning? These humans, they should be bowing before us, not forcing us back." A second-in-command spoke up, his tone grave. "We underestimated them, sir. They're using tactics we didn't anticipate. Their technology, though primitive, is adaptable. Their unpredictability is unlike anything we've seen. These humans are—" He paused, trying to find the right word. "Different. We may need to reassess our approach." The commander slammed his fist onto the console, his anger spilling out in a moment of rare frustration. "Restructure the fleet, increase the assault. Do not let these creatures think they can win. We crush them now, before their resistance spreads." But it was already too late. Earth's successes were beginning to ripple through the ranks of the Empire's fleet. Morale, once high among the invaders, was beginning to fray at the edges. Fear spread from ship to ship as the realization set in. Humanity was not just fighting back, they were fighting to win. Back on Earth, the global unity that had formed in the wake of the initial battles was stronger than ever. People who had once been divided by politics, borders, and ideologies now found themselves united in purpose. The war effort had become a global cause, and every nation, every citizen, knew that the fight in space was not just for survival, it was for the future of the human race. Even as the warships pressed forward, Earth's scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to improve their designs, adapt their tactics, and develop new weapons. Each piece of technology that Earth's forces had reverse-engineered from the Empire's wreckage added to their growing advantage. It wasn't just about firepower. It was about learning, adapting, and evolving faster than the enemy could keep up. And so, the battle for Sol continued, but for the first time, it was clear to all. Humanity wasn't just a planet under threat. It was a force rising up, a force that would not back down, no matter how overwhelming the odds. The Empire had awakened something in Earth that they could never have predicted, a power far greater than any weapon they had. The power to fight, to adapt, and to win. The realization that the Empire's fleet was no longer invincible spread like wildfire through their ranks, causing waves of doubt to ripple across the once unshakable confidence of the invaders. For centuries, they had crushed world after world with ease, each conquest strengthening their belief in their own superiority. But now, for the first time, they were facing an enemy who wouldn't bow down. Humanity had not only fought back, it had done so with a cunning that confused and bewildered the Empire's commanders. What had once seemed like a fleeting rebellion was now transforming into something much more dangerous. A genuine threat. In the vast command center aboard the Empire's flagship, the high-ranking officers could no longer dismiss the situation as a minor nuisance. The data coming in from their fleet was troubling. Earth's warships had grown bolder, more coordinated. What had begun as a scattering of tactical skirmishes was now a precise, relentless assault. The Empire's ships had taken damage, their systems destabilized by the humans' devastating resonant waves. They were no longer the only ones dictating the pace of battle. "Reassess the situation," barked the fleet admiral, his voice edged with frustration. "We cannot allow these humans to continue this defiance. Bring in reinforcements from the outer territories." But the damage was already done. For the first time in the Empire's history, its invincibility was in question. Their once formidable reputation began to crack as their forces struggled to adapt to the unorthodox tactics of Earth's warships. The humans weren't just adapting, they were changing the very rules of warfare. They fought with a ferocity that had long been absent from the Empire's conquered worlds, and that same ferocity was beginning to erode the invaders' once pristine confidence. On Earth, General Kane stood before a holographic map of the battlefield, her expression unreadable as she watched the Empire's ships falter. It wasn't just the humans' tenacity that had begun to win them battles, it was their adaptability. In every fight, Earth's forces were learning more about the Empire's technology, weaknesses, and habits. Their engineers had continued to refine their weapons, their tactics evolving in real time. The next step was clear: strike at the heart of the Empire's command structure. She turned to her team, her voice steady but with an edge of determination. "We forced them to retreat from the outer territories, but that's not enough. We need to hit them where it hurts. Their fleet is too large for us to defeat head-on, but we can break them from within. If we take out their command ship, we'll cripple their ability to coordinate, and their forces will fall into chaos." The plan was risky. The Empire's flagship was a fortress, an immense vessel surrounded by layers of defense. But Kane knew they had already achieved the impossible, perhaps the most impossible thing of all. The Empire was not infallible. It had underestimated Earth, and now, that oversight was playing into humanity's hands. Back in space, the Empire's leaders scrambled to reassess their strategies, still struggling to comprehend the sheer unpredictability of the human forces. The admiral aboard the flagship issued orders for a full-scale counterattack, but the damage was mounting. Communications between their fleet grew disjointed as their command ship became increasingly unreliable, its systems flickering in and out of stability. Fear began to trickle into the Empire's leadership, something that had never before been allowed to surface. And then, as the human warships closed in, an even more disturbing reality began to set in. The Empire was now facing the first stages of internal fracture. The fleet's high command, once a united front, now began to splinter under the pressure of successive losses. Lower-ranked officers began to question the wisdom of continuing the assault. Some ships hesitated to engage, unwilling to risk everything in a losing battle. For the first time in centuries, the Empire faced the unthinkable, a crumbling of morale. On Earth, the human forces were relentless. Their warships had become a symbol of defiance, each one a tribute to human ingenuity, each one built with a singular purpose: to survive and to win. As the forces prepared to launch their final strike against the Empire's flagship, General Kane's resolve solidified. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the very soul of humanity. The battle for Earth's future was reaching its peak, and humanity was ready to take the fight to the heart of the Empire itself. The momentum had shifted. Now, it wasn't about surviving anymore. It was about victory. The final strike was set. Humanity's forces had gathered their strength, pooling every resource, every innovation, every scrap of willpower into one singular mission: to pierce the heart of the Empire. General Kane stood at the command center, her hand steady on the controls, eyes locked on the image of the Empire's flagship floating just beyond the reach of Earth's warships. The massive fortress of a ship loomed ominously on the battlefield, the symbol of the Empire's might. It had become clear that Earth's victory wasn't just about overcoming the invaders' firepower, it was about breaking their spirit, shattering the myth of their invulnerability. The plan was simple, though dangerous: a coordinated assault on the flagship, aiming for the command deck, the nerve center of the Empire's entire fleet. If they could disable the flagship, It would throw the Empire's forces into chaos. They didn't need to destroy the entire fleet, just the core of its power. Without their command structure, the rest of the Empire's ships would fall apart, and humanity's warships would be free to tear them down one by one. The human ships, agile and unpredictable, split into two groups. One would distract the Empire's defenses, drawing attention away from the true target, the flagship itself. The other group, led by General Kane, would make the direct assault. They had only one chance. If they failed, Earth would fall. The Empire's fleet would ravage their planet, and there would be no second chances. "We move out in 15, Kane said, her voice firm but laced with the weight of the moment. Her eyes scanned the faces of the officers around her. They knew what was at stake. The war had gone on too long, and every day the enemy lingered above Earth. The stakes grew higher. It wasn't just Earth's survival anymore. It was about sending a message to the galaxy. Humanity would not be a stepping stone, a plaything for some ancient empire. They would be a force to be reckoned with. As Earth's warships made their way toward the Empire's flagship, the tension in space was palpable. On the Empire's flagship, officers scrambled to respond, trying to adapt to the unpredictability of the human fleet. It was too late. General Kane had already predicted every possible countermeasure. Earth's ships had spread out, using their superior speed to slip through gaps in the Empire's defenses. And as they neared the flagship, they deployed their most effective weapon, another destabilizing wave designed to overload the Empire's shields, creating the perfect opening. The first explosion rang out, a violent burst of light and sound, as the wave collided with the flagship's outer defense shields. The Empire's ship trembled under the impact, its powerful systems momentarily faltering. The humans wasted no time, closing the distance between them and their target. As the fleet surged forward, Kane's ship led the charge, her crew moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Every maneuver had been rehearsed 1,000 times over, but now, the real test was here. The flagship's defenses struggled to regain control as human warships continued their assault. Small, surgical blasts tore into the hull, targeting key areas that would weaken the ship's ability to fight back. The humans had learned to exploit every crack, every opening in the Empire's design, and now it was showing. The invaders' superiority was slipping away. Inside the Empire's flagship, chaos was unfolding. Officers scrambled to restore order, to fire back, but their systems were failing. The command deck, the heart of their operation, flickered as the destabilizing waves took their toll. Panic spread among the crew, a rare and dangerous emotion for a species accustomed to dominance. Their arrogance had blinded them to humanity's capabilities, and now they were paying the price. General Kane's voice crackled over the intercom, her tone commanding as always, but with the weight of the moment behind it. "This is our chance. Hit them now. No mercy." The final push came, and with a blinding flash, the human ships launched their last, most powerful strike directly at the heart of the flagship. The command deck imploded, systems overloaded, and the Empire's flagship was left a hulking, disabled shell drifting aimlessly in space. It was over. In the silence that followed, the remaining Empire forces began to falter. Their once indomitable fleet was in disarray, communication lines severed, leadership gone. Humanity had done the unthinkable. They had struck at the Empire's core, shattering their hold over the galaxy. Back on Earth, the atmosphere was electric with triumph. Humanity had stood tall in the face of annihilation and had come out victorious. General Kane watched as the reports flooded in, confirming the collapse of the Empire's command structure. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The Empire had underestimated humanity's resilience, its ingenuity, and its unwillingness to surrender. And now, Earth was poised to send a message to the galaxy. Humanity was no longer a fledgling species. They were a power that would never bow to anyone, not the Empire, and not any force that threatened their world. The first chapter of humanity's rise had been written in the stars, and it had only just begun. The moment of silence that followed the fall of the Empire's flagship was profound. Humanity, against all odds, had achieved what many thought impossible, forcing the once invincible Empire to its knees. The reports were flooding in now, the effects of their decisive strike rippling through the Empire's fleet. Ships that had once been coordinated now drifted aimlessly, their communication networks shattered, their commanders lost or in disarray. The might of the Empire had crumbled, not from a force superior in strength, but by one superior in spirit. General Kane stood in the heart of Earth's command center, her eyes glued to the screens as their forces continued to mop up the remaining Empire vessels. Every victory had come with a heavy cost, but the resolve of humanity had proven stronger than any alien fleet. Earth's warships, battered but determined, pressed forward, targeting key Empire ships still struggling to maintain any semblance of order. As the final blow struck the last remaining flagship, a collective cheer erupted from Earth's forces, a rare moment of triumph in the heat of the battle. But Kane knew this was not the end, not truly. The battle for Earth was over, but the war was far from finished. The Empire may have lost its command structure, but it still had a vast network of territories and colonies spread across the galaxy. Their fleet had been shattered, but the remnants of their power still loomed large. For humanity to truly win, they would need to do more than defeat a fleet. They would need to make sure that the Empire never returned. "The real work begins now," Kane said, turning to her officers, their faces glowing with a combination of exhaustion and disbelief. The war was not yet over. We need to hit their supply lines, their worlds, their remaining strongholds. We cannot let this victory slip away. They will regroup. They will retaliate. And we will be ready. In the weeks that followed, humanity's forces, bolstered by their recent successes, launched a series of precise strikes against the Empire's outer colonies. These operations weren't about blind revenge. They were calculated, surgical strikes designed to cripple the Empire's ability to reorganize. Earth's newfound unity became their greatest weapon. Nations that once squabbled over territory and ideology now fought side by side, an unstoppable collective force determined to secure the future of humanity. Back on Earth, the sense of unity only deepened. The victory in space had been a unifying moment, and now it was a rallying cry for everyone on the planet. Scientific breakthroughs continued to come in at a pace that had never been seen before. Humanity was moving at an unprecedented speed, innovating not only to defend their planet but to assert themselves in the greater galactic stage. In the aftermath of the battle, the Empire's retreat began. It was not a surrender. It was a broken withdrawal. The once proud and arrogant conquerors now limped back to their homeworlds, their strength shattered, their grip on the galaxy loosened. For the first time in centuries, the Empire was not the predator, it was the prey. News spread quickly across Earth. The victory was not just a triumph of technology or warfare, it was a triumph of humanity itself. Against all odds, a young species had stood up to the might of the universe's most powerful force and had emerged victorious. The human spirit, bound by resilience and creativity, had not only survived the Empire's invasion, but had dealt the first blow in what would soon become their future. And that future, though uncertain, was theirs to shape. In the days following the fall of the Empire's command, a message was broadcast across the stars, a message from Earth to the galaxy. It was simple, but powerful, sent by General Kane herself. We are humanity, and we will never surrender. It wasn't just a declaration of victory. It was a warning to any who would dare to challenge humanity's place in the universe. No longer would Earth be a quiet, vulnerable world in the corner of space. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, and it would defend that place with everything it had. The galaxy would learn soon enough. The Empire had underestimated Earth, and that mistake would be their undoing. Humanity's rise had begun, and nothing, no empire, no invader, no force, could ever stop it.